Let's talk that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Okay, so this episode was essentially what it says in the box. It was about the battle and aftermath of the battle between the direwolves and the goblins. So, after Rimuru hears the situation, he goes to check on the injured and instantly heals him thanks to the potions he's been carrying around inside of him, and easily heals all the injured goblins. Then, with the assistance of the goblins, has all of their houses dismantled and turned into a giant fence to defend them against the monsters, and with Rimuru's help, are able to lay a trap for the direwolves when they show up. Quite a few direwolves die, like half of them, and then the direwolf boss, realizing what happened, decides to get vengeance, but is also caught in the trap, and when he refuses to concede to Rimuru, Rimuru basically just chops his head off, eats his corpse, and gains the ability to transform into a direwolf himself. Then Rimuru gives them the option to either submit, retreat, or die, and they submit. Rimuru, realizing he now has an even number of goblins and direwolves, decides to pair them all up and turn them into goblin riders, which is a kind of cool concept because everybody now has their own wolf friend. Everybody now has every goblin is now paired with a wolf and vice versa. And then after realizing this, realizes he needs to give them all names because none of them have names and it's going to get very hard to help them out. So he gives them all names, and naming the two main goblins, Rigger and Riggard, after Rigger's brother, also named Rigger, who died. And Riggard because he's the father of Rigger, who died. Not the new one, the old one. But it's very confusing. And he starts naming all of them individually and giving them all names, and ends with the new leader of the direwolves, who he names Ranga. And it's at this point where he passes out because he overexerted himself. Because he ran out of magicools, which basically depleted him and put him into his comatose state for 3 days. When he wakes up, he finds that all of the goblins have evolved into hobgoblins, and all the Tempest Wolves have basically evolved as well, because now they're no longer direwolves, they're Tempest Wolves, as I said. They're no longer direwolves, they're Tempest Wolves. I screwed that up, but it's okay, I explained it. But realizing he's created a new problem and made them much more powerful, Rimuru explains that gives them 3 rules. They're not supposed to harm humans, they're not supposed to fight among themselves, and they're supposed to coexist peacefully with other people. So, after realizing that he doesn't want that they don't want them fighting amongst themselves as well as others, the goblins consent to these rules, and then Rimuru realizes that their housing and clothing and all that is inadequate, so he assembles people to go collect food, people to go collect other things, but then he realizes that none of the goblins know how to build a house or make clothing, and finding out that they had partnerships with dwarves, but they didn't really act on it all that much, decides to head out with Ranga and a team of goblin riders to go see the dwarves and see if they can help them build houses and make clothing. And that's where the episode ends, because that's where the next episode only begins. So this episode was pretty straightforward. It kind of showed that Rimuru is sort of becoming the Martin Luther King of his universe. He wants everybody to get along and he wants equality for everybody, hence why he named all the goblins and gave all the direwolves names and turned them into Tempest Wolves. Well, not really. It's explained for a little bit that because he only named Ranga, they all took the name of the pack, and now the pack is called the Tempest Wolves because they evolved because their leader was named, and because the pack is all connected and is treated as one singular monster. The entire pack evolved, which is an interesting little bit of lore that I didn't know I needed to know. So that was kind of cool. And now we know that naming monsters can have both benefits and disadvantages. On the one hand, the goblins are now much stronger and have become an entirely new race altogether, becoming hobgoblins and goblinas for the females. While also realizing, but he also realizes that with this could come a new stroke of egotisms and stuff like that. So he created rules and regulations to keep that in check so that nobody would do that. So that people would just accept other people and not try to start fights with anybody else. Because he wants everybody to be happy and safe. So, and it's also kind of interesting to me that the wolves just evolved on their own. And now Ranga looks like a giant unicorn. I really don't know. I really don't know what else to say. He looks like a giant unicorn wolf with a star on his head. There's really nothing else I can say. That's really all I got. He's a giant unicorn wolf. There's really nothing else I can say about that. It's just one of those little random details that you notice when you're watching this show. And it's like, oh, this guy's a unicorn wolf now. Just casually has a horn on his head. It's funny, but also kind of cool. Although none of the other wolves grew horns on their head. Maybe it's because he's the alpha and they're not, and they're the omegas, I guess. But yeah, this episode was interesting. It didn't do a whole lot in the way of story, but it did show that Rimuru is trying to build a world where everybody gets along, and that's why he made everybody equal by naming everybody, giving them names. So that's why they're so powerful now. And I'm assuming this is going to have some sort of effect on Rimuru in the future, because Rimuru got named and he's just a slime. So is he going to evolve into some sort of super slime or something? Because I know from the OP that he eventually does gain a human form. Kind of spoilers, kind of sort of, but we know, yeah, so I'm assuming something's going to happen to him that gives him a human form or something, or the name does it. I don't know the details. All I know is that the LP's basically spoiled some stuff for me, because I mean, not everything. There are some characters I still don't know who are, but yeah, it's an interesting little thing, just a little tidbit I thought I would bring up, because it's kind of been spoiled for me. Not really, but because the OP likes to do that. It likes to spoil plot point. Okay, I'm gonna just go off on a tangent here for a little bit. You know, an OP for a show is good when it gives you plot points, and then you watch the anime and go back and look at the OP and realize where these plot points plug into the OP. So that's how you know it's good, and when you can actually discern details from the OP. Unlike Sword Art Online's, who's just like, you know, this thing happened. Here's characters that matter, but we're not going to tell you anything about them. Oh, here's a general plot. Oh, fighting sequence. And that's pretty much Sword Art Online's OPs in a nutshell. Except for the last one. The last one's good, because there's actually things to dissect in it. But I will not bore you with that any longer. So if you guys have seen this episode of That Time I Was Reincarnated as a Slime, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, hit that like and the subscribe button. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!